Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, ghost strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with chef and restaurateur Daniel Shemtob. Daniel, good to see you. I wish it were under better circumstances. Daniel is one of the people not only impacted by the fires, but also helping to uplift spirits and feed people in the aftermath. I'm sure you could probably express what's going on better than that. So, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the longest 8 days I can remember, kind of since we've evacuated our home and we lost our house the night we evacuated from the Palisades fire. And so it's been a crazy week, just dealing with the consequences of losing your home and losing all your stuff and dealing with insurance and finding a new place to live and, a pregnant wife who is at home and stressed out. And then also being a business owner and then taking it upon ourselves to want to give back to the community because I think that that's what makes that's the necessary step in rebuilding. And so I think it's been a balancing act and it's taken a lot out of me this past week, but ultimately I feel really good that we're able to do so much.
And we are recording this on January 15th. So, like, just over a week after life change yet again. Are you comfortable sharing, what happened, your evacuation story?
Yeah. So it was Tuesday, and I remember I had my weekly call with one of my employees, and it was about 11:07, and my wife came into the house, pretty panicked, and said, "You got to come out and see what's happening." And so I don't like being interrupted when I'm on a work call, so I'm like, "Oh my God, what is it?" And so I run out the stairs, and I go onto our street, and the hill is on fire, and pretty bad. But the hill's pretty far from where we live. We live kind of in what they call downtown Palisades, so we're in much more of an urban environment, considering. And so I saw it, and my in-laws were staying with us, and so my in-laws were kind of panicked, and my wife was, and so I knew we had two cars to. Well, we had more than we needed, but we had two cars to leave, and they left right away while I was still on the call, and I, finished the call and packed up and only thought we were gonna be evacuated. I never thought in my wildest life that we were gonna lose our home, and so we barely brought anything with us, and we left and went to my wife's aunt's house in Westwood.
Wow. I'm like outside of the warning zone. So I feel it. I'm on alert, but it's nothing compared to what you all are going through. But then you started cooking, right?
Yeah.
So what happened next?
Um, so the next few days, were pretty tough. I've only in my life, I've had, some things that I've had to overcome that were pretty difficult, but, uh during COVID, I lost my mom and basically my businesses all at the same time. And it was really difficult. I went into kind of a deep depression and I didn't really realize what was happening, but I understood why I was feeling that way, but I didn't understand what the feeling was of depression. And I found myself basically back in that same predicament where I couldn't be alone. I couldn't focus on anything. I was sad. I couldn't sleep, which still has been a struggle, but it was really tough. And I remembered when I was going through all of that, years back, the first time I started to feel better was when I was able to give back to the community, and, I started to snap out of it, and much quicker this time, which I'm really grateful for. And so I remember it was Friday night, it was Shabbat at the house, and we were just kind of sitting around. Everyone was really sad, and on top of that, we our house was, that we're staying at was full because a lot of people evacuated in the family, and this house was safe, and so everybody came here. And so we were full of people, and everyone was really depressed and sad and mopey, and rightfully so. And I was too, and I just snapped out of it. I realized that I need to give back. I could sit here and be depressed and think about all the stuff I lost and my mom's things that both my brother and my house burned down. So we lost all of my mom's things that we saved from her home when she passed away. And I could think about those things and all the clothes and the cars and everything that I've been working so hard in my life to collect and that were really important to me. But I was safe. My wife, who's pregnant, was safe. We were with family. We were blessed to be in a beautiful home, dealing with it and surrounded by community. And so I just, it all clicked and it was like a bolt of lightning. I mean, my wife was blown away. I was sitting here and it was like 11 o'clock on Friday at night. And I'm like, what do we need to do to get done? Where do we need to find a place to stay? What's going to happen? And I just went into action. And that was the first moment since losing our home, since me riding my bicycle back through the Palisades and seeing everything turn to ash. Like that was the first moment that I felt whole, or at least as whole as I could. And then I knew the next step was getting on my food truck and giving back to the community and making other people feel good because I know I have that ability through delicious food and through my front of house abilities and things like that. And so the next morning, I got on my food truck, World Central Kitchen could not have picked a better time to get me back on the ground because it was Saturday morning. And my jump back into the truck was kind of nothing short of a miracle. I mean, I get to my food truck, Tyler Florence is there. I have a deep personal relationship with Tyler, having been on his show so many times. Like I think for 5 different seasons, I've been on that show now and won it. And so, uh, having him on my food truck, and one thing about Tyler that I always know is, he's kind of the people's, chef. Like you always put him in front of the truck and you let him charm. And he was on the line with me making tacos, and we served 500 people in 90 minutes because you don't want these people waiting in line. That's the last thing you want them doing. And so we were serving delicious food. We were going back to back, and I just felt the good energy of taking care of others. That felt really nice.
World Central Kitchen is doing a lot in LA. You are just one of many chefs in the Los Angeles area that's kind of bonded together to feed. So, how did you get involved in it? How does all this food philanthropy work?
Yeah, so I love World Central Kitchen. I consulted with them to help them build food trucks overseas. And then I also with my footwear business Snibbs that we talked about before, I created a collaborative shoe. And so we launched a shoe and 10% of gross revenue went to the charity. So I've always been a supporter of WCK from afar, knowing that in the case of an emergency, what they do is so beautiful because they thread the community with food, that I knew that that would be something I'd be involved in. And when I finally had a chance to do it physically, which I never had before, that was when I got the call. And so what they're so special at doing, and I think what makes WCK so unique is every memory that I have with my family and all the things that I love and cherish are around food. It's around a table, it's around breaking bread. It's like the most age-old tradition. And what I saw with what we did with WCK on that Saturday morning was it was one thing because we're giving back. It's another thing because people are eating and getting nourishment. But it's another thing because we're all engaging together and we're talking and we're commiserating and we're laughing and we're crying, and it's all the things that you go through when you go through tragedy, a shared tragedy with others. And so, I don't want to call it trauma bonding, but it is. And you do that through delicious food, which is nourishing and beautiful, and through hospitality. And I'm so proud of our hospitality community. This is a community that is selfless. During COVID, they were the first ones to jump back into the field, even though we got hit the hardest. And you look at us again, and we're just doing everything in our power to give back when no one's going to restaurants this week. That's not what this week's about. But the restaurants knew that, and instead of thinking about their bottom line, which they never do, they thought about giving back to the community. And that's what I love about us, and that's what I love about what I've seen. And I think LA has just done an amazing job in such a difficult time.
So, for the people who need to eat, how can they find out about what you and World Central Kitchen are doing?
Yeah, there's so many ways. So I mean, I don't have the most up to date data, but as of 2 days ago, I think it was 41,000 meals, and that was like, and I think they're doubling almost like every day. And so there's a lot of food. You can go on WCK's Instagram. I noticed you can go on different chefs that are posting like the different people involved. You can go to the different community organizations at the Rose Bowl, and so once you are able to find one of these opportunities, they'll have so many more, and they typically show up the same time every day. So we've been kind of consistent with the locations we've been involved at. But yeah, they're at the Rose Bowl, they're at the Santa Anita, they're almost all over. But look for those big hubs where you can find them.
Great. And we're recording this on January 15th. The conversation will go live next Wednesday, January 22nd. This is not, it's going to be a while. So even if you're listening to this World Central Kitchen is not going away. It's going to be a while of the need for feeding people in that drama bombing, which I think is really probably the right word because at least for me, and again, being on the outskirts of it, so close enough to feel it, but fortunately far enough away that the impact has been less, it's a hard to motivate. And this is from a goals person. It is very hard to move forward when your world is in like a standstill. So what do you say to people who are like, what's next?
That's a tough one for myself. I mean, I'm trying to balance all these things at once, and I don't think I'm particularly doing a great job at it. And I would say for everyone, have grace with yourself because this isn't normal. This feels like the longest week of my whole entire life. And there are things that are falling under that I have a business to run that I haven't even thought about in a week and a half. But or businesses to run that I haven't thought about in weeks and a half. But it's yeah, I don't know, just have grace with yourself and take it each day at a time. I think when you sit there and you try to think about the next year or 2 years or 3 years, it becomes overwhelming. You don't have control on what's happening. I remember when I moved into my house 9 months ago to start my family there, I thought about every hypothetical, every situation that I need with this house and all the things that can happen and how I'm gonna be here for 5 to 7 years, and then we're gonna move to our next place, and I had this whole master plan, and before I got home, I had 3 weeks to redo all my goals, which that list is basically trash at this point now, and I had so much thought, and it all got shook up so quickly, and I think that's just the reminder is you could do all the planning in the world, and I think planning is really smart because it gives you a lot of foresight in where you wanna go, but at the same time, you can only take it day by day, and in this moment, there's so much going on with everyone that if you could be a good neighbor, if you could be a good family member, if you could be a good friend, if you could take care of yourself, which is really hard to do all of those things at once, but if you can do that, I think each day will get lighter and we'll start to see some light at the end of this tunnel, and that's really all you can.
I am completely with you on that because obviously I've been having this conversation a lot over the last week, and that is my bit of advice is to do nothing. You need to take care of yourself, and when you're ready to move forward, you will know.
Yeah.
What are the needs of World Central Kitchen for people who aren't impacted but want to do good?
Yeah, I mean, there's something really cool that I noticed about the community, both in LA and just in general, is everybody wants to help. And so I think the easiest and most direct way is donate to WCK, right? That that money is going to go to an organization that does a great job in the community. I mean, I donate to them, right? Like that, I would do that. And then if you can volunteer, reach out to the truck owners, reach out to the people that are doing the food. People, you could also sign up for the Chef Corps in WCK, but I know their hands are really busy with getting all this. You don't know how challenging it is to find locations and get food and get these people there and all that stuff. But everything that they're doing right now, I'm just in awe because it's so many moving parts. And so if you can make their life a little easier in this moment and you reach out directly to me or to Koji or to Susan Vinegar's truck, like whoever it is, like if you could reach out to them directly and say, hey, do you need volunteers? If they need them, they'll have you come. I have had so far this week like 20 volunteers come onto the trucks, and honestly, it was just nice to have people that I'm close with on the truck helping me. And so, like, I feel like you could do that. You could donate. You could write messages to the people affected. I have so many messages, and I'm not saying that. I love it. Like, even though it's so much work and I have to respond and it takes hours to respond, it's so nice to know that so many people are thinking about me or I'm in their thoughts and prayers. And it feels like a warm hug, even from afar. And so I feel like there's so many ways to get involved. If you have the capital, donate. If you have the time, volunteer. And if you don't have either of those, just send a nice message to someone you know affected by the fires.
I love that. And I will also say that I saw that you were impacted and I sent you a message. And then independently, I wrote to a contact at World Central Kitchen, who can I talk to? And they sent me you. So, I love that the way in which certain conversations come about. Where does food really play into the recovery element?
What is food, right? Like, why do restaurants exist? Like why is there hospitality? Why is there Shabbat dinner? Why is there all these things that food becomes something? It's to bring people together. It's to nourish for sure. It is an essential part of survival. You can't live without eating, but you can. You can go much longer without food than water, right? But like food is such a part of our culture and life because it does bring people together and it brings communities together. And so I feel like when you look at the recovery, food isn't going to be it, right? Like there's so much things that we have to do that are so deep in clearing debris and getting rid of these toxins and rebuilding that is so essential. But if we can band together, which I'm seeing 110% we can, then we have the foundation to do all the other stuff. And so I see food as that essential foundation before you can build the other stories of building people together and making people feel good enough so that they can start to think about the other things. If you told me to start thinking about rebuilding my life last week on Thursday, I'd tell you no way. But after I was able to feed people and get fed and really nourish myself and others, I started to think about what the future for me and my wife is going to look like. And so for me personally, food was a gateway to be able to do more that I needed. And I hope that's how it is for others.
So well put. And mazel tov on your impending bundle of joy. And best of luck really in rebuilding your life, because you need to know that you can do it first and foremost. But definitely when you're fed, it does feel like you have more power and more control.
Yeah.
Any final food for thought?
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it beautifully. This is not going away soon. Like, no matter how long the media or how long the world has their eyes on LA, like LA has years of uphill challenges to get back to what we had in the past. And I think we will be stronger for it. You know, I love when people are like, oh, I don't really like LA or blah, blah, blah. And it's like LA is an amazing city with an amazing culture. This is going to bring us together. This is the first time that sadly, I talked to my neighbors. I lived in my neighborhood for 8 months and I didn't talk to my neighbors while I was there. Now I'm talking to my neighbors, which are no longer my neighbors anymore. And so when I think about what the future holds, like with Snibbs, I want to give back to the community on a monthly basis. And I want to do that for the next few years. I don't want to just do it this week and then it's done. So I think one of the things we have to focus on today, and I know that, but like, what does tomorrow look like too? Because I think our community is going to need a lot of support for a lot of time. A lot of my family members who are rebuilding, they're on a 5-year journey ahead of them. And everyone thinks that these people affected in the fires that lived in the Palisades and all over, oh, insurance is going to pay and everything's going to be great. I know so many people, including myself, who got dropped from insurance. Like there are people with huge deficits from what the life they were living to what they're going to get reimbursed. And how are they going to do that if they're living tightly month to month? If you're living check to check as an average hospitality worker and you've been displaced, how do you come back from that? Right. And so I want to find ways to support people through Snibbs and through the Lime Truck to do that. But like, that's what I think we need to shift to as leaders in our organizations and leaders in the community. Like, how are we going to build back, not just from, a citywide perspective, but from the individual and from the family level?
We will be keeping an eye on all that you are doing. Where's the best place for people to be in touch with you?
Uh, Right now, I think I'm communicating pretty well on social media because I think there's a lot to do there. And I just got to 100% of my GoFundMe that I started 48 hours ago to give back, which I'm just feel unbelievably overwhelmed by. And so I think just on social media, like on Daniel.Shemtob, if you find me on Instagram, that's the main place. Or you can email me at Daniel@DanielShemtob.com. But I'm trying to be as active as I can through communication. And I just try to do it like batch it like once or twice a day.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing your story, not only of loss, but of a hope, because that's what we really need. And as we've said, we're Angelinos. We will get there. Might take a bit, but we will get there together. So thank you again for taking the time. Thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and/or your favorite podcast platform. And you can learn more about Daniel and all he is doing and going through at jewishjournal.com/podcast. And you can also learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. So whether you're cooking for people or enjoying a meal, take this time to bond and uplift. And until next time, bon appetit.